I said, here's the goal. And then I achieved the goal.
Mm-hmm.
And then here's this period where I'm like, all right, I'm going to make another decision for myself. And I know I'm just going to get another job. And I left and I did not get another job. So there was some shame, I think, associated with that for me.
In this episode of In the Meantime, we're talking about the heartbreak of job loss and what happens when your title, your paycheck, or your sense of purpose suddenly disappears. Through this week's Porch Talk letter titled In Grief, we hear from someone who saw the signs before the layoff came and now is navigating the quiet chaos of identity loss and the pressure to bounce back. Together, we talk about the emotional spiral after job loss, the guilt of rest, and the sacred work of rebuilding who you are, not just what you do. And as always, we'll always leave you with a little truth to carry in the meantime. Hello, this is In the Meantime.
Wisdom for the spaces between who we were
and who we're becoming.
All right, everybody. Episode 5, laid off, let go, or just left. This is for the folks in professional transition. So the ones who've been laid off or let go from their employers, or who just simply walked away for whatever reason. It's for anybody that's sitting in that in-between space where your job is gone, but your identity is still catching up to that.
Because work isn't just a paycheck, it's a rhythm, a structure, and sometimes a sense of belonging. So when it disappears, you don't just lose a job, you lose part of how you saw yourself.
Yes. And we've all been there in some way, right? Like the title changes, the door close, or the doors close, and suddenly you're left wondering who you are without the nameplate, without the meetings, right? Or the hustle, right? So here's the truth. You're not just unemployed. You're becoming something new.
Yeah. All right. So here's the juicy part. Before we dive into the conversation, it's time for some Porch Talk. All right. So Porch Talk is, of course, where we share a story from us or from one of you who are listening that brings the conversation to real life. Because sometimes loss doesn't just come from love or family. Sometimes it comes from work. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to read the Porch Talk today. Dear In the Meantime, what's wild is I knew it was coming before it happened. We usually do know it's coming before it happens, right? I work in a hybrid setup, 2 days in the office and the rest from home. Normally, those office days felt good, easy. The kind of days where you actually look forward to seeing people, the quick laughs at the snack station, the how was your weekend check-ins that make work feel more human. But a few weeks ago, something shifted. Conversations got shorter. The energy got weird. Slack messages felt colder. Folks who used to loop me in, stopped looping me in, that kind of silence that says more than words ever could. Yeah. So when the email came on a Tuesday, subject line, calendar hold, HR update, my stomach dropped before I even clicked. No message in the body, just an invite. By 9:15 a.m., I was locked out of my computer, badge access gone, and just like that, my identity as the reliable one at work had disappeared. The shock hit hard, even though I had an inkling. And maybe that's because I actually liked my team. Maybe because I was proud of the little title on my email signature and those paychecks that were coming in. Or maybe it was because deep down, I didn't realize how much of my worth was tied up in that title and status. At first, I cried. And then I started doing what we do. I got busy, updating my resume, fixing my LinkedIn, sending messages that started with, hey, girl, long time. But after the panic wore off, I realized what I really missed wasn't the job. It was the identity I tied to the job, that title. I didn't just lose work. I lost a sense of being useful or being seen. People keep telling me it's an opportunity, that this is my chance to rest, to reset, to rebuild. And maybe they are right. But right now, I am grieving. I am grieving income, health insurance, title, access, structure, and all the things I didn't realize I depended on to feel like myself. Signed, in grief.
Wow.
Phew,
Wow.
Yeah, that's heavy.
that right there.
Yeah, that's tough.
That's about losing the version of yourself that lived in that job.
Mhm.
It's a kind of grief that we don't talk about enough. We
Yeah,
don't talk
Yeah.
about it.
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
And I think we don't talk about it because when we look at grief, we kind of sometimes equate it to death, the
Yes,
death of a person versus
yes,
the death of
yes,
a job, the death of
yes,
a relationship, that kind of thing. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, she
Mhm.
said she knew it was coming, but it still sounds like it knocked the wind out of her, which is real, right? So even though you may see something coming, it does hit different when it finally actually happens to you.
And wow, and I'm just thinking about even, when I retired in 2018, a lot of times our worth and in terms of how we see ourselves,
Yeah,
sometimes it
yeah,
really is kind of, we think it's tied to that title,
Mhm.
to all those days we went in for years, right? 8 to
yes, yes,
14 hours a day, in and out, day in, day out, right? And so, especially for us as Black women, because a lot of times we have to deal with, we live in a society that doesn't rather value us, and
yeah.
so we especially sometimes tie our worth to our jobs.
Mhm.
So when the job disappears, we start questioning who we are
Our
without
own-
the doing. Like,
yes,
I don't
yes,
have this thing. I don't have this place to go to. I don't have this title that I used to have. Yeah,
yes.
definitely a situation of grief.
So she says she got busy right away. So of course this happened to her. She started updating her resume, reaching out, doing all the things that, prompt some action, right? Because you're trying to
Mhm.
fix the thing that's happened, right? So let's talk about that urge in us to immediately move toward action. Why do we feel like we have to fix the loss before we can even grieve it? Like we take the
Mhm.
time to sit and think about it or to process our feelings about it. We immediately start jumping into action mode. What is that about?
When you talk about why do we just jump into action first versus sitting back
Mhm,
and breathing
mhm,
and thinking about what just happened? I think it's because of how we were socialized,
mhm.
right?
Absolutely.
I think a lot of times it's, when something happens in life, just jump back in there and fix the problem and, get back, on the whatever bandwagon, whatever it is, just get back in there and start working. And
Mm.
and I also think we don't want to be seen in a certain light.
Mm.
So we don't want people to
What's that
see
like?
us, like we don't want people to see us as lazy or unmotivated is
Mm,
another term for lazy, right? We don't want people to think that we're not doing what we need to do, and especially, depending on if any compensation is related to this, but like if you lose a job or something, and now perhaps you might have to ask somebody to help pay a bill or whatever, right? And so
Oh, good Lord.
no.
you certainly want to act, I'm
Yes.
looking for a job, I'm doing this. You
There
want
you
to be
go.
able to name all these things to let
Mhm,
them know that while I'm asking and don't feel comfortable doing so and don't really want to, but know that I'm out here doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm looking for something else. I'm, on
mhm,
top of this. And so I think there are a lot of reasons why we don't just stop,
mhm,
right, and just kind of sit in that grief. And I was thinking about one of the things I used to teach at Southern Miss in the School of Social Work was the various stages of grief, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
Kubler-Ross is one of the authors of grief, and she talked about these various stages that we go through. And again, a lot of times we think about it in terms of death, right? But even in death, sometimes people tell you somebody will die, and oh, they're up there with God. God needed an angel, and just you don't have to cry because you're gonna see them again. And see, again, that's kind of like that unction of, get over it, move on with your life. And I think we're
Yeah.
just always given that message. And
mhm,
I say, look, there are various stages, and it's okay to go through those stages,
Mm-hmm.
right? While simultaneously, right? Because I know life doesn't stop. But I do think we need to, take some time for us while also at some point thinking about what's the next move. Of course, that's going to come, but
yeah.
that's a very good question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think to add to that, it's a general uncomfortableness with vulnerability, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
This idea that, there is a foundation that I have created in some ways for myself, right? By way of this job or this title or this position. And so when that is gone, the vulnerability that you might experience being kind of, wading out here in the water essentially feels suffocating and it feels uncomfortable. And I think that because we've been socialized to be responsible for whatever state we find ourselves in, right? Nobody is coming to save you. Of all the people and demographics that exist, you're the one nobody's coming to save. You know what I mean? And so I think a lot of our socialization growing up has been you need to create the type of foundation that will not have you out here vulnerable. And so when we experience that, I think it's just very uncomfortable. I think to that end, another thing might be that, a lot of women are experiencing just one or two generations of being able to take care of themselves, fend for themselves, pay their own bills, have their own credit cards, like do all of those things. And so there's not some big foundation of, I got somebody who's gonna help me pay for my rent for 8 months while I find the next job. Or I'm responsible to other people in my family who might depend on me. So I can't be out here without the ability to be in that position to help the people that I help support. I just think there's a lot there. And I think a lot of it speaks to, like you said, Mama, how we've been socialized to think about our achievements, the foundation, and what that means for not only us, but how we're perceived to other people, and how I think some of it even is how we have created our own perception of ourselves, right? In our families and in our communities. Absolutely.
What she said that she missed most was the identity that tied her to the job. Like Dolores said, when she left her job, you get to think about that identity. How do we start separating our sense of worth from work?
So Ms. Angela, you asked, about, how do we start separating who we are from the work that we do? I think that's a really good question to consider. What does that look like for you?
This identity that we have tied to the job sometimes is about purpose, but sometimes because of our spiritual part of who we are, we're always searching for purpose. And so then when you find this job, you think that this is a part of my purpose. Like you're literally working there from 8 to 12 to 14 hours a day. And you might think that this is what I'm supposed to be doing with my life right now. Right. And I know that changes over time, but in that moment, you're thinking, this is my purpose. And so, how do we start separating our sense of worth from work? I think we have to address that. Like, purpose is so massive and complex. And just because you have a job, right, it doesn't necessarily define you as a person. And it's really hard to kind of distinguish between the two when you feel like the job is about who you are. It is your purpose. It is what you're supposed to be doing at that time. So anyway, the word purpose just came to my mind when you asked the question.
For those of you all who are listening and you can't see, you couldn't see my face when Mama said, for many of us, your job is tied to your purpose. I kind of grimaced a little bit because, baby, it ain't. No. I know for some people it is. For some people it is. But I was thinking, Mama, as you were talking, back in this whole scenario reminds me of a horrible, terrible year I experienced. And I actually walked away from a job that did not serve me. I hated it. Listen, I'll just tell you, I was a drug rep. This is back in my this long time ago. I was a drug rep and I hated it. And when they offered a package to leave to the whole company, I was like, that's my cue. That's my sign. I'm out of here. I hate it and I'm out of here. Well, this happened to be the same time as the 2009 economic recession.
Wow.
And it just devastated all industries. And I had bought a house and the house wouldn't sell because so many houses in the neighborhood were foreclosed, so your house was just worth nothing. I had gotten renters who then didn't pay rent and had to be put out of the house, which was a whole another situation. So I went, I know, over a year, maybe a year and a half, probably closer to 2 years, maybe I think it's about a year and a half, where I literally had no income and a mortgage to pay. Okay. And this is, just a few years out of coming out of school. And it was just devastating. And I think, aside from the stress of like, I have bills to pay or what, whatever, I think the idea that up until that point, I had always, in my estimation, like won at what I was trying to do. I would do a thing and I would achieve a thing. I would, in school, I would do the thing. I would say, I'm going to go do this and I'm going to go get that degree. And then I'm going to do this. And then I'm going to do that. And I'm going to get the MBA. And then I'm going to do that. And I'm going to so everything was by my own. I'm not saying like by my own hands, like I didn't need help, but I said, here's the goal. And then I achieved the goal. And then here's this period where I'm like, all right, I'm going to make another decision for myself. And I know I'm just going to get another job. And I left and I did not get another job. So there was some shame, I think, associated with that for me, because it wasn't even that I had gotten let go. It was a decision I made, but I could not find something else. And I felt just so out of place with myself and with that decision, I think. Now, looking back, I needed that year. That year taught me so much about myself. It taught me to be okay being vulnerable sometimes, and you're not going to be able to see the whole staircase. You might just see one stair, all of that. And I'll just say that to say, sometimes there's, this idea that, the work is tied to you, but it is, the achievement that's tied to you. And so when, people are like, well, what are you doing now? And I'm like, I've been out of work for a year and a half. It just feels so antithetical to who I had been till that point. But again, and it's hard to see it when you're in the meantime, when you're sitting in church crying and saying, Lord, rescue me from whatever's going on. Right. But afterwards, I think about that year probably once a week. It has created in me the courage I have needed since then to do what I've done. And at the time, but I think about that. I remember that time, even when I go through bouts now where, I'm an entrepreneur. So sometimes we get really, really busy and sometimes things shrink a bit and sometimes get really busy. And during those times where things shrink a bit, I say, what are you here to teach me? What is this season here to teach me? And I know things will be back on the upswing, but sometimes you don't know the situation that you're going through is you need it to be able to do something down the road, and it doesn't feel good at the time. But you will appreciate the road you had to take that felt barren and alone and shameful and hard and all of those things, crying when I'm putting somebody out of a house who won't pay rent and refuse to answer calls and I didn't move. It's tough. I get it. And it is detaching from the achievements and the titles and the being just naked with myself and who I was. You know what I mean? Disconnected from those other things. And
girl,
I needed
now you can say, look at me now.
But you know what, Angela? And so this is just about like that little part in the middle, the in the meantime part though, right?
Oh yeah.
Because somebody out there is listening and saying, okay, I hear you, right? And you're saying, you're looking back and you're saying, wow, I needed that.
Yeah.
But y'all, it is so challenging when you're in the middle of it. Like you try.
Yes.
Like you try to think about all the things people tell you. Just pray about it. This means God got something better for you. This is gonna help you, da 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 da. This is an opportunity. Like people give you all these, like you were saying earlier, Angela, all these ideas about things you can do while you're in that, like while you don't have a job. You know what I'm saying? But then when bills start coming in, and Tiffany, you were talking about when you got renters who won't pay and do what they right, and you putting in. I remember this. You got up every morning and went to Starbucks. Do you remember that? Filling out applications. And I'm saying that is the challenging part. That is the in the meantime moment when you're in the middle and you're just frustrated because you got bills coming, but no job opportunities, right? And you're right. That is a vulnerable place to be when you've always kind of, done your own thing and you've always paid your bills and you did the things that you were supposed to. So I can imagine people, even this person who wrote the letter, like, oh my God, like, right? I've been doing
Yeah.
this. My
Yeah.
identity is tied to it. Now I don't have this. What next? Like, what am I going to do? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna give one more antidote to that because I'm thinking about it now and I'm about to let the audience see me get teary-eyed. But I do think that there is some part of us too that looks at other people's situation, right? You may see somebody on social media and be like, oh, they're doing this and doing that, and da, 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 da. And it could be that it has always been easy. But it also could be that there have been bumps in the road, and those bumps in the road don't get added to the highlight reel. So I'm always careful to share those bumps in the road because they will come and you don't get to the rainbow, the other side of the rainbow sometimes without going through that rainy season because it requires that too. And I remember I was interviewing for the job I eventually took and I remember talking to HR and they said, okay, well just come up to New York and interview and pay for your flight and your hotel and we'll reimburse you on the back end. And I remember thinking, I don't have money for that. I literally had enough to get me there, and check into a hotel room. And I told the lady at the front desk, now this is me having done all this and all the degrees and all of the things, right? And I said, listen, you're gonna run this card for incidentals. It is not gonna go through. Because I do not have $150 extra on this, and I am here for an interview, and I just need you. I promise you, I won't drink nothing out of the little refrigerator. I won't take no nuts and no peanuts and no candy. I won't have any extras. I just need you to let me say. And she ran, and of course, they come back, and she went down. She probably went to about $40. And finally, she just said, "Okay, girl, I'm just gonna trust you don't, you'll run up, a bill in this room because I clearly all I had, and thankfully, that is the job I ended up getting. But I say that to say, and I say that to share that sometimes, comparison can make that pain even more acute for us. You know what I mean? And we're like, well, it seems like everybody else is able to just do this and do that and get the next job or whatever. But your race is your race to run. And sometimes the parts of our race that require that huge sacrifice is equipping us for what we will need in the next chapter.
Oh, yeah.
That's my spiel about my credit card not being able to do incidentals. All right.
What you thinking, Angela? What you thinking?
Girl.
So have you ever been in that place? Like, right, when you think about jobs that you've had and, where you've either lost a job or whatever.
Now I have always had some kind of little job, some kind of little piece of job. But kind of little piece of job I've always had. But when you grieve, just like Dolores said, it is so many different stages of grieving. And I believe every part of grieving is just as important as the next. You do have to rest. You do have to exercise. You do have to eat. You have to keep yourself going. I was working in a school district. So I was there because, of course, my husband said, my wife needed a job. So they gave him a job and they also gave me a job. So I was there for 3 years. And they came in at the end of May and said, we don't need you anymore. I said, huh? So just like that, my job was gone. I was talking to the people where I work now at Dallas College. And I said, hey, they just said they didn't need me anymore and I don't have a job. And he said, well, Angela, he said, can I call you and talk to you on your way home this afternoon? I said, sure. Not knowing what we're going to talk about. And he offered me a job. So I had to lose a job to get a better job.
Wow.
Girl, oh, Lord God.
That's
thank you.
I know. And that is the outcome sometimes, right?
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
she said she's grieving income, insurance, access, and
Mhm.
structure, all of it. Because I think sometimes we don't think about all that's lost when
Yeah.
we lose a job, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you talking about now everything is
Like you
kind of
said,
tied to that in
insurance
terms
and
of your
everything.
well-being. Yes, and
And
that's
I
a
didn't miss a
big
beat. I didn't miss a
yes.
beat. When I
Wow.
say I did not miss a beat,
See, that's good. That's what I'm
girl.
talking about. And that is for some people, right? That happens.
Yeah.
Now, in the
Yeah.
case of
Yeah.
this, in the case of this porch talk, you know, we don't know, right? We don't know if she immediately got a job or whatever, right?
Right.
But I like that you bring up that in that situation, you immediately got another job, which again happens sometimes, right? And
Yeah.
then other times it might be a year. It might be because that's what you were talking about earlier, Tiffany. It might be a
Mhm.
year and a half before you. And so just understanding that people are not just grieving the job, but all that's associated with it. So just quickly, I remember, you know, when I was at the university, and every summer it was optional to work in the summer, right? So I got my regular paycheck
Oh yeah.
9 months
I
out
know.
of the year, and I know what you, yep.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and it was optional to work in the summer, but I worked every summer because I had to, right? I was a single parent with 4 children, baby. I didn't have a choice. As a matter of fact, when they started asking in spring, you know, who want to work in the summer, he knew not to even ask me because that I didn't have a choice. I got to work, right? Because now I get checks 9 months. I can't go 3 months in the summer without a check. But I
Yeah.
remember the first time my classes, like the university had a decrease in enrollment, and those classes did not make. So a lot of the classes were not offered because they didn't have enough students. So guess who was out of a job for 3 months? Me, right?
Yeah.
And that was the time when I look back over my life, that was the time that I was considering bankruptcy, like everything, right? Because I couldn't
Oh.
pay more. And I was living from check to check because
Uh,
again,
uh,
I'm the single parent. I have 4 children. I'm working for the state, which, you know, people know you just don't make a whole lot working for the state. You know what I'm saying? And so I was living from check to check. So that means if I didn't get those a check for those 3 months, I couldn't pay mortgage.
mm,
I couldn't pay light
That
bill.
might be around the same time because you couldn't help me on my little hotel
I
either.
could not help you. Yes, I couldn't because I
yeah.
didn't have anything either. Do you see what I'm saying? And so when
Yeah.
this writer talks about grieving all of the stuff, the structure, like, because that's your life, that's your livelihood. And so
Mm,
I'm thinking about how am I going to feed my children? How am I going to put gas in my car? Because when I say I was living from check to check, I was living from check to check. And so if I'm
Lord
going
Jesus,
3 months
thank
without
you.
a check, huh?
I said, Lord Jesus, thank you.
Right. And so that's what I mean. So when she says that, I can certainly understand. And she talks
Right.
about having to rebuild a sense of safety from scratch because she's
Mhm.
thinking about now I got to go back and try to rebuild all this. Am I going to get a
Mhm.
job that's going to immediately let me get insurance? Because some of these jobs, you have
Yeah.
to work 3 months before you have
Yeah.
access to some of the benefits.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, so
Yeah.
so I just wanted to share that it is scary. And you
Yeah.
know, sometimes you don't know. And in my case, it wasn't that I didn't have a job for that next fall, but even within those 3 months,
The struggle
things just right.
financially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
this is about what do we do in the meantime. So we don't
Mm,
want to like gloss over that, right? Like,
Mhm.
so yeah, we this happened and this was the outcome. But what happened in the middle? Like, what were you thinking, Angela, when you know they told you we no longer need you?
Mm.
you know what? Because of where I was at that time in my life. Now, had that been probably 10 years prior, I probably would have been just freaking out, maybe.
Mm,
But at that particular time, I was like,
deuces, huh?
yeah,
Or
just
mm,
deuces. I mean,
mm,
didn't know what I was gonna do. Hadn't even really thought about it. But I was an adjunct, so I had that little piece. I never
yes.
really thought
Mm,
about it
Mhm.
like this one right here, and to think
yes.
about it. But it takes time for everything, and and we need to always have a plan.
Mm,
Yeah.
Always
mm,
have a plan.
Yeah.
Always have a plan. If you fail a plan, you plan to fail.
mm. Okay.
So I will tell you what I did, and I
What were you doing when you were going to Starbucks
What was I doing? I was applying to jobs, Miss Angela. I'm trying to get some jobs. I was trying.
That's what she was doing.
That's what I was doing. So a couple of things. Number one, and I had to, when you were asking the question, I had to write it down. I said, take myself back there. That was a long time ago. But one, I had to let go of the idea that I was the only one going through this. And I remember sitting in Reverend Kathy, if you're listening, I was sitting in your church pew when this happened. But I remember the choir was singing the song. I don't even remember what song it was. If I thought about it, I probably could recall it. But it was talking about going through a difficult period. And in my mind, I thought, whoever wrote this song, whoever, everybody's so emotional about this, singing it even now. They are thinking about their own things that they have gone through. The song, whoever wrote it has gone through something, right? Because those words came from a place of grief somewhere. I want to say it was a Marvin Sapp, but anyway. Okay, so I said, you know what? I'm not the only person. In my grief today is this thing, but somebody else's is something else. Somebody's lost somebody. Somebody has been diagnosed with something. Somebody has, everybody's will go through things. I'm not the only one. So I had to let go of this idea that there was just like this cloud that was raining on me and everybody else was dry and happy. Okay. So that's one. I think the second thing is that I this is a practice for me. And I remember even when Tanisha, when she listens to this, she'll remember this. But I remember when she was at a period where she was kind of like in between things, and she was going to go to law school, and so there's a lot going on. And so, and I told her, you're never going to be hungry. You're never going to be hungry. You're never going to be without a safe, warm place to live. And just those two things. And I know this is hard, right? Because you want to be able to do the things you want to be able to do and move how you want to move and live the life you want to live. And you will get back there. But in the meantime,
that's it.
You will never be hungry because you have family and friends who love you and will never let you starve.
Yes.
And you will never let you be out here sleeping under a bridge. Those two things you can.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so if you can just hold on to the gratitude that exists in that existence.
Yeah.
Then I've heard before, like a grateful mind space can't also exist in tandem with sadness. Like you gotta like move the gratitude and bring the sadness in, and then when you move the sadness in, you bring it's really hard to hold those two things at the exact same time. So anyway, so for me it was, how can I identify and keep in my head and my energy the things that I am just tremendously grateful for. I had packed up my stuff and moved, gone back to Mississippi, but I had something to eat and I had a warm place to rest my head in my mama bed in the meantime. Okay, and then this is the third thing, and then I'll be. I had to like release myself from the grips of my own like power and control over everything. Because mama says all the time, all you can do is what you can do. And I always add, and you just do like a little bit more so you can just keep growing. But I had to say, you know what? It is actually gonna change and happen when it's gonna change and happen. And sometimes all I can do is the little bit that I can do, which is go to Starbucks and apply for these jobs and get my little 50-cent refill while I do it, my little drip coffee. And then I've got to just release the idea that I can control everything that is happening in the world around me, because I cannot. All I can do is what I can do. And I think those three things really helped me to just move through that time. I had to go through it. It wasn't going to change until it was going to change. But how do I sustain my own sanity in the midst of this meantime experience? And those were the things that helped me to just be able to breathe and release.
And I think that's so I'm listening to both of you all, and a couple of things. So what y'all are, you got to have some support, right?
Yeah.
And so, and if you're fortunate enough to have family members, friends, etc., and so you want to definitely in these in the meantime moments when, and again, I know it's a challenge sometimes, right? Because you don't want to feel like you're on people. You don't want to feel like you're, y- whatever. But at the end of the day, it's about that assessing for, coping mechanisms, support systems, right? What can you do while you're in that meantime process? So if it's, when you think about the resources that you might need, you might want to start thinking about that. But before you get into all of that, I hope we remember that it's okay to sit still for a minute and allow yourself
To
to
feel.
think about what just happened, to
Yeah.
feel it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And not just jump into these things, these other things, like, oh, let me go find a job tomorrow, right? Like,
Mhm.
just even if for that day, let me sit with this, let me think about what has just happened and what this will mean. And then I think in that meantime moment, then of course you're going to come up with a plan and all that. Now, I'm just going to add through my process for those 3 months, the steps of grief. So I've said that over and over, right? But what are some of the steps? Denial,
Yeah.
anger,
Yeah.
bargaining, right? So I'm
Yeah.
sitting up thinking, number one, I'm saying, oh, there's no way I can't go 3 months without a job, right? I was in denial. Like, this is crazy. I never, I have 4 children. I have bills. I have these things to do. There's no way, right? And then I kind of got a little angry. Sometimes, people don't want to say this, but I got a little angry at God, right? Because then we start thinking about all the things that I'm doing the right thing. So I'm paying my tithes and offering and I'm da 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 da. And you start thinking about all these things that you're doing and you're wondering, I give and I'm trying to help others. And why is this happening to me? So that
Mhm.
was another thought
Mhm.
that I had, if I'm being honest. And then you start trying to bargain, like, okay, so what if I, God, can you just give me something and then I'll give more, or I'll help people even more? Like, we start. So these are all these steps and these thoughts that are going through my mind. But ultimately, and there are other steps, but
Mhm.
ultimately there comes this acceptance. You know what? This is my reality
Oh yeah. Oh
for
yeah.
these next 3 months. This is my reality. Now, what am I going to do about it? And then you get to the assessing for coping mechanisms and support and trying to put a plan in place, going to Starbucks every day, trying to figure out,
Mhm.
or Angela jumping on that call with that person who says that they want to talk to you on your way home. You
Mhm.
start, trying to figure out what are the other resources out there that can help me through this time. Were you getting ready to say something, Angela? I saw you getting
Girl,
ready to say something.
girl, girl. It's just so much, so much.
Mhm.
But I do. I'm so glad. I thank God for family. And I try to, with my girls, I try not to be hard on them whenever they might go through this part or
Yes.
that part, or say,
Yes.
well, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this, da 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 da.
Yes.
Mm-mm,
Yes.
mm-mm. I
Yes.
say, what can I do to help?
Mm.
I can do this or I can do that, but
Mhm.
we as a whole, especially as Black women,
Mm.
we need to be willing and ready and listening to people that are going through, because there's a lot of people without a job right now.
That's right.
And a lot of
Yes.
people without the SNAP benefits right now.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot.
Lot going on. Yep.
Yeah,
And this is part of our assignment. Mommy talks about purpose, and I was like, I don't know what my purpose is, my job. But I tell you what it is. And I think it is a part of all of our purposes. To be able to stand ready to help somebody else who's going through something perhaps we've already been through, or we just
Mm-hmm.
are in a
Yes,
position where we can encourage somebody, or
yes,
we can be there for somebody,
yes.
because we all have to exist in this same little timeline with each other. And
Yep.
if we're not supporting and helping and making each other's lives a little bit easier, and hopefully that's reciprocated in the good relationships that we have, in our families and our villages and our friends,
Mm-hmm.
then really all of this is for not. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
one thing to say like, oh, he created this life and did all this stuff, but to do that and also be ready and able to help somebody else's life be a little bit easier or better is really where I think we can find some of our greatest joy, in the
Yeah.
midst of
Yeah,
somebody's
yeah,
um,
yeah.
meantime. So.
Yeah. And additionally, I think this is also a time where we can figure out who we are.
Mm-hmm.
That's an important thing, especially what Tiffany said when she said she had to just relieve herself or remove herself, or know that she wasn't the only one going through that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yes.
Not always in control, and you
Right.
ain't the only
And,
one.
and just think, sometimes your growth doesn't look like a new job. It's just about remembering who you are outside
Mhm.
of that role.
Right.
So
yeah,
I don't want us to miss that point, right?
yeah,
Like, yeah, this is a job, but Dolores, who are you outside of this summer job that you have, right? And I think it is an opportunity to really, Angela, you talk all the time about loving self and really focusing on that. This is a time to really kind of figure out who you are outside of
yeah.
society's expectations of you,
Mm.
who you
Yes.
are out,
Oh, yes.
you know what I'm saying, outside
Society's
of
expectation, your
job,
family's expectation,
your
your
family.
religion's
Yes,
expectations, your own expectations,
yes,
your partner's expectation, your kids' expectations,
that right there.
expectations, all of the things that
I love that.
all of the ways that people put us in boxes and want us to, perform in those ways. It's
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And
interesting.
then I just got to say this one other thing, because Angela, you said this, and I don't want us to miss this either. People out there listening, listen, you all. You said, Angela, when your kids, what you try to do is not just, oh, well, you need to get there. Oh, you need. And I think sometimes we have to be mindful. So for those of us who might know somebody who's, going through and might, whatever, think about what support looks like.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah,
You,
yeah,
you know what I'm saying? And it doesn't
yeah,
always mean, helping them pay a bill, although that can be a part of it. But it really is about listening.
yeah.
It's about not putting a lot of pressure on them, because believe me, most people are putting the pressure on themselves.
Mm.
Oh,
And
yeah.
sometimes
Oh,
they
yeah.
just need somebody to come by. And Angela, that's what you're saying. Like, if your kids are going through something, it's not, fussing and yelling and you need to do this and you need to do that. But sometimes it's just listening and supporting and encouraging.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think that is very important. Those are some things that we can do, to what y'all were talking about earlier, to assist others going through this.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yes,
This
Yes.
is good. You want to get into the takeaways?
Yes, let's do
Yeah.
that.
Takeaways.
So in the meantime, you are rebuilding. You are rebuilding. So during that period, just let your rest be
mhm,
part of the work.
mhm.
Don't forget to take time to rest and think
Yeah.
about where you are.
And I know that's hard to do because your mind is
Yes.
racing and trying to get to the next thing. But sometimes the body will make us slow down, or the environment will make us slow down and force
Mhm.
us to get some rest in preparation.
Yeah,
Y'all
Absolutely.
expect the preparation. All right. Sometimes being laid off is just life's way of laying you down for a reset. And again, I know that's hard to hear or absorb sometimes when you're in the middle of it. But you got to accept it so that you can be prepared.
yeah,
Whatever lessons that quote I think about often. The question is, are we willing to give up who we are for who we can become? And
Mm.
sometimes God, the universe, whoever will
Mhm.
make us give up something because there is something else that we need to move forward and do. So,
mhm.
Here's your question for the week. What would it look like to trust yourself again in the meantime? Right? So you've lost this job, and especially if your identity is tied to that. And sometimes we lose trust and faith in who we are, right? And so what would it look like to trust yourself again, right? In your in the meantime moments.
yeah. If you are in a season of transition, whether that is career, calling, identity, we would love to hear your story. So feel free to send us a message on our Facebook page at facebook.com/inthemeantimepod, or you can find us on Instagram at @inthemeantime_pod. We will read it and get back to you for your story. We would love to hear from you. Or if something that we said today has helped you or harmed you, please don't hesitate to reach out to us and let us know.
And don't forget, you're not behind, you're becoming.
Yes, that's
You are
powerful.
becoming. Yeah.
Yes, I like that, Angela. Absolutely. So, for now and in the meantime, I'm going to let my pause have purpose. That's what I got, right? That I'm just going to let my pause
I'm
have purpose.
trusting that in the meantime, what is next for me will meet me when I'm ready. Sometimes
Wow.
I don't know when I'm ready.
Yes.
I just think I'm ready.
Yes.
So I'm giving myself permission to breathe before I rebuild. Oh,
Wow.
ew.
Yes.
Breathe
That's so
before
important.
I rebuild. Oh,
Yes. Yes. Can we all breathe? 1, 2, 3, in, out.
Oh, I did that.
Yeah. One more time. We got to do it right. 1,
Okay.
2, 3, in, out. Yes. See, I know that feels
I need to
good.
remember that. I need to remember
Yes.
that. To
We
breathe
have to do
before I
that.
rebuild. Yeah.
That's it. I love that. I love that. Look, you all, this is In the Meantime.
Wisdom for the spaces between who we are
and who we are becoming.
You don't have to have it all figured out.
Just be where you are.
And take something for the road, maybe a little rest and a little hope.
Yes.
And a little snack.
A little snack. Gotta get a snack in. Gotta pour a glass of wine. Eat some popcorn.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you all for listening.
In the Meantime is a production of Black Unicorn Productions. This episode was executive produced by Tanisha Williams. Music by Presence of Sean. Special thanks to you, our community, for sitting with us in the meantime. Until next time, remember, the meantime is a porch, a prayer, and a promise. A sacred space between who we were and who we are becoming. This is In the Meantime.